I'd like to begin by thanking the grace of heaven, virtues of masters, grand predecessor, transmitters, lecturers, and all of you for giving me the chance to share the story of the little disciple, Resents, or you could say, or blames holy teacher. So the story begins with the little disciple visiting holy teacher's home in heaven. And the little disciple is kneeling in front of holy teacher's lotus platform, and he's crying desperately. And then he's looking around, and the little disciple tries to describe holy teacher's home. And he says that it's so beautiful, majestic, and dignified, and its beauty is just utterly indescribable. And he says holy teacher is sitting on a large lotus platform, and he wears these beautiful, luxurious satin gold monk robes. And there are 2 rows of soldiers that flank holy teacher's sides. And nearby, there's so many angels next to holy teacher. And there's a tranquil and lovely garden surrounding them. And meanwhile, millions of people burn incense and give food offerings and bow in respect for holy teacher. Now, seeing all of this beauty, the little disciple can't help but compare holy teacher's home to his own home. So he lives in a tiny temple that's dedicated to him. But in the spring and summer, it always floods, and the floods scare him. And on the days where it's not flooded, it gets so hot that it makes him sweat. And during hurricane season, the little disciple gets drenched because of the leaky roof on his temple. And in the winter, a beggar or a homeless person found shelter in little disciple's temple. But the beggar started a fire with wet grass to cook and ended up smoking up the entire temple. It was so smoky that it makes the little disciple's eyes tear up so bad that he can't even take it. And he ends up having to stand outside of his own temple, outside of his own home. So meanwhile, holy teacher's temple is always smoky too, but it's because of all the visitors who come to burn incense for holy teacher, right, out of respect. And eventually, the beggar starved and died inside the little disciple's temple. And it took many months before the body was found because his temple gets no visitors except for New Year's. Now, his temple is so smelly and so dirty that the little disciple cannot even bear the smell to stand inside or even right outside of his own temple. And the little disciple says, while holy teacher has 2 rows of soldiers to accompany him, the little disciple gets 1 angel, but him and the angel don't even get along. And while holy teacher wears these beautiful gold robes, little disciple wears these broken slippers, old robes, and a ripped rag on his head. So the little disciple complains about how his position is so low and blames holy teacher for not warning him. He says that holy teacher was too easy on him and always spoiled him with kind words. And if holy teacher had been stricter or harsher with him, then maybe little disciple would have taken it more seriously and cultivated better. And so the little disciple blames holy teacher for not convincing him to do better. So holy teacher hears the little disciple's complaints, and he laughs dryly. And holy teacher tells the disciple, he said to the little disciple, I told you not to get so hot-tempered. But the little disciple always said, but that's just my character. Holy teacher said, I told you to go out and propagate, but you always said it's too far and it's just too difficult. So holy teacher said, I even told you to host your own temple, and that when you host a temple, it's a direct bridge to heaven. But the little disciple said, but my home is too small, I have no money, and life is just too difficult. And then holy teacher said, I told you to donate more, but the little disciple said, that's just tricking people into parting with their money. Holy Teacher said, I told you that earth is not forever. But little disciple said, my kids are too young and I'll just cultivate later. Holy Teacher said to always respect the Tao members. And the little disciple said, I don't have time to get to know them. Holy Teacher said, I even told you don't eat meat. But the little disciple said, if I don't eat delicious meat, my mouth cannot survive. He said, hurry and don't be lazy. The little disciple's excuse was, I'm just too dumb and I can't cultivate too quickly. Holy Teacher said, I told you that money and temple's things are to be treated with propriety. And you said, oh, it's not necessary to be so strict. Holy Teacher said, I told you to follow the regulations. But the little disciple's excuse was, if we're too strict, it'll scare people away. Holy Teacher said, I told you to do more vows and spread the regulations to others. But little disciple's excuse was always, I'm too sleepy and I'm too tired. And I told you to follow temple's rules, but you responded with, but who can possibly follow them so perfectly? Holy Teacher said, I told you to speak less, but instead you ignored me and just kept talking. And Holy Teacher said, I told you to follow good leaders and good examples, but instead little disciple said, oh, but it's just easier to blend with the ordinary people, regarding partying and gambling. So Holy Teacher said, I had even told you to just finish one task, and then when you finish, you can go somewhere else and do more. But instead, little disciple said, the temple's so comfortable. Why not just stay a few more days? There's always more time. And then Holy Teacher said, I told you don't take temple's money home. And then little disciple said, it's just borrowing, so it's fine. So Holy Teacher tells little disciple, he was always too careless and always disregarded temple's regulations. And he tells little disciple that he was always too lazy. And Holy Teacher did warn you, but instead, the little disciple always complained that Holy Teacher was just nagging him. And little disciple's excuse always was that there's plenty of time and I could just do it later. So Holy Teacher says to the little disciple, you blame Holy Teacher, but who is really to blame? And Holy Teacher tells him, it's way too late to regret now. Anytime the little disciple encountered hardships, he always hid and stepped backwards. And now he wants to complain and demand to be side by side with the Buddhas. So he says, you want to be shoulder to shoulder with the Buddhas and have a big lotus platform like them, and you want soldiers to keep you company. But have you ever considered how many hardships and obstacles Holy Teacher had to encounter and overcome to get to his high position? So Holy Teacher tells the little disciple all about his experiences. So Holy Teacher had to endure rain and storms, and Holy Teacher froze and starved to help the Tao mission. And there were so many people who were out to get him, and he was even tortured for helping the Tao. Remember, this was a time when, if you were caught practicing religions or Tao, then you could go to jail or get tortured. So, Holy Teacher was jailed and tortured before. And he said there were some nights where Holy Teacher didn't sleep at all because he was so busy spreading the Tao. And Holy Teacher had to suffer many criticisms and negativity at temple. And Holy Teacher spent all of his money and his time in order to help the Tao. He even left home and his parents to do that and was not able to be filial to them the way he wanted to. So Holy Teacher made so many sacrifices and faced so many hardships, but never once did he resent the Tao or the temple. He never once relaxed or slowed down in helping others. So Holy Teacher shares some wisdom for those who are serious about cultivating. He says, first, always follow and respect temple regulations carefully. If we're careless, it is easy to lose merits that we worked hard to earn. He says to be consistently and continuously sincere, day and night. So even if we're alone, the Buddhas always know what's in our heart and in our minds. Holy Teacher says we should not be stingy with our donations to temple and never cheat the Buddhas. That we should always listen carefully to the Dharma teachings and practice what we learn. We must also not interrupt others when they're teaching about the Tao to others. The Holy Teacher says, if we take shortcuts, we waste our potential and the opportunity, and will fall short of what we could have achieved or where we could have been. Right? So a little disciple had the opportunity to cultivate and gain a high position, but he threw it away and wasted his opportunity. So if we all do the same thing, we really have nobody to blame but ourselves. The Holy Teacher says to be a good disciple, we must be pure of heart. So we must always have good manners and respect regulations and propriety. And Holy Teacher also says we should not have any motives, and we should let heaven plan our paths. So, for example, we should not aspire to become a lecturer or a transmitter. We don't want to have an attachment to these sort of titles. Instead, we should trust heaven to help pave our paths. However, it's important to note if an opportunity arises, we shouldn't hesitate to help the temple any way we can. So we should always have faith that the Buddhas are paving the best path for each of us. And at the same time, we need to be willing to do our path and actually walk the path ourselves. Right? So Holy Teacher says that a good disciple never gets tired of spreading and speaking about how great the Tao is. And he says that we should always treat everyone equally, no matter how rich or poor anybody is. So remember, there's no I or there's no you. Those are all forms. So CEOs and beggars, they all have to cultivate the same way, because all Buddha natures are the same. Just like the sun doesn't shine more or less on somebody because it likes somebody, right? The Buddha natures of CEOs, presidents, beggars, animals, and Buddhas, everyone has the same Buddha nature. So there is no, me or you. We're all equal. We're all brothers and sisters. So Holy Teacher says we must cultivate ourselves and help others to cultivate as well. We should stay away from evils and always maintain that path of the truth. And Holy Teacher says we should always reflect often. So we should try to self-reflect on our behaviors at the end of each day and often think to ourselves, what could I have done better today? And then vow to ourselves to do better tomorrow, right? And if tomorrow maybe we don't do it perfectly, then we try again the next day. Because Buddhas are always next to us and watching us and recording us. They note down, any errors we might have made or anything we did incorrectly. And they never overlook even the tiniest merits that we earn. So Buddhas tell us, that they're always nervous and scared that we might fall or we might make mistakes, but they're always by our sides, cheering us on and trying to help us. So Holy Teacher says we should study Tao books often and maintain pure and strong virtues. If we can have strong virtues, heaven will reward us with limitless merits. If we can, survive and suffer hardships on earth and are still relentless and persistent and never give up in our cultivation, then heaven will give us something called a red book in Chinese, and which is basically translates to a ticket straight to heaven. So if we all want that, then we need to follow Holy Teacher's advice and guidance, and maintain it. So basically the Buddhas have given us all the tools we need to succeed. It's just up to us, each of us to utilize and use these tools that they've given us. Holy Teacher says, if we do all of these things he's telling us to do, then we can become good leaders and others will naturally follow and respect us. So we don't need to, or we should not ask for, respect and followers from other people, but by naturally leading with our Buddha natures and letting our Buddha natures be our masters, and lead with our virtues, others will naturally gravitate to those characteristics and want to be near us. Okay? So a holy teacher says that cultivating is both easy and difficult, but it depends on ourselves, not on heaven. Heaven cannot force us to cultivate. And one of my favorite song lyrics from a temple song basically says that, Buddhas are always holding our hands and guiding us, but one day they will let go of our hands because in the end, we all have to walk this path by ourselves, right? So we come into this world alone and we have to leave alone. We can't bring anyone or anything with us. And a holy teacher says we must accumulate merits while we can before it's too late. So if we don't have enough merits and virtues, then evils and bad karma, each of us have that. It could block us from cultivating. And we must do it, do more while we can, because we don't know what kind of karma is waiting for us around the corner, waiting for us to slip up so that they can get their payback. And who knows what we've done in this life alone, let alone what kind of wrongs we might have done in a past life, right? So therefore, it's so important that we do whatever we can while we have this lifetime's opportunity to build up our merits. And, it's not just about donations of money, but of our time, our effort, and our sincerity. So I remember, I was told when I was younger that $1 from a poor person, like a beggar, means more to heaven than $1,000 from a millionaire, right? So it really, all that matters is that we show our sincerity and from our heart. So maybe that means if we're able to, we donate some money when we can, or it means we sweep at the temple when we go, or maybe we speak about the Tao and share what we know with others. Everything we do to help this Tao mission will help us accumulate merits naturally. So after hearing all of this, after hearing, like holy teacher telling the little disciple all of the things he did wrong, the little disciple realizes his mistakes and that he really only has himself to blame. And he says, he regrets not sweeping at temple because now his karma is to have a beggar dirtying up his temple. He says he regrets not wiping the tables at temple because now a dirty cowkeeper child is always putting his feet up on little disciple's lotus platform statue in his temple. And he regrets not following the proprieties because now a beggar cooks and smokes up his entire temple. The little disciple says he regrets not cleaning properly or burning the incense because now nobody burns and offers incense for him. So you can see how kind of this cause and effect happened where he did something poorly when he was alive, and now his karma, you can see what happens, right? The consequences. So the little disciple says he regrets not cleaning his hands when he entered a temple because now his karma is to have kids play with his statue in his temple with dirty hands. He says he regrets loving his money so much and not donating because now nobody donates or even offers fruits for his own temple. The little disciple says he regrets wearing dirty clothes to bow at temple because similarly now his temple is worn down and has a leaky roof. He says he regrets not greeting and sending off the 18th patriarch or holy teacher whenever he visited because now he's all alone and has no visitors. Little disciple says he spent so much time making money for his kids and his family when he should have spent more time helping the temple. I mean, I feel like I hear that all the time at temple now, right? People who say that they'll cultivate when they retire or maybe when their kids are older. But the thing is, like, who's to say if we will even make it to retirement, right? Like, tomorrow is not even a guarantee for any of us. So this is kind of just a reminder to us that, we have to appreciate each day that we have. It's like an opportunity. So little disciple says He ended up with countless money that he couldn't take with him after he passed, and now he suffers the consequences of his actions. And he regrets liking Earth so much that he was too attached to it, to this physical world. And he never bothered to create affinity with the Buddhas. So when I hear that, I think, how lucky are some of us who were able to see the Buddhas channeling, right, in the US and in Taiwan. I mean, we had so many chances to create good affinity with these Buddhas every time we go to temple, we listen to class, or we read scriptures or attend Dharma classes. Those are all opportunities to create this good affinity with the Buddhas. So Little Disciple says he earned very, very little merits, and he only earned a tiny rundown temple in his name. And he regrets his arrogance and not cultivating seriously. So he feels shame for 1,000 years. So he warns us to not waste this opportunity. He says he was very good at making money on earth, but he should have spent more time and more effort planning to gain merits to reduce his bad karma and gain a higher position in heaven. So we're all so fortunate to be able to walk the same path that all of these Buddhas and Tao members have walked before us. We should take advantage of all of their experiences that we can learn from. So we should think to ourselves every time an opportunity comes up for us to help someone or help temple. It's an opportunity for us to accumulate merits and create good affinity with heaven. And not everyone is as fortunate as we all are to be able to have this chance. So we need to make sure that we don't waste that opportunity, right? So the Little Disciple pleads for all of us to learn from his mistakes and his regrets. And he urges us to earn a lot of merits so that one day we can exchange it for a high position in heaven. And Little Disciple says it's actually very affordable to gain a high position. It only takes one lifetime of cultivation, and then we can enjoy the fruits of our labor for thousands of years. So, one lifetime of good merits translates to about 10,800 years in heaven. So if we just do some quick math and say an average lifetime is about 100 years, which we know is pretty generous and kind of overestimating, but it means that we can roughly spend 108 lifetimes in heaven. And to me, that sounds incredibly worthwhile. And we just have to work hard this lifetime. So all we have to do is learn, observe, and follow the paths Buddhas have already laid out for us, right? The Buddhas are so kind, compassionate, generous, and they're always helping others before themselves. They're selfless, right? So they move heaven and earth with their sincere and pure hearts all the time. And Buddhas are always dignified and justified. So if we can learn to do that and behave the way that the Buddhas do, then one day we may be able to earn a spot, side by side, shoulder to shoulder with the Buddhas. So the real question is just if we want it or not. And if we wish to be with the Buddhas, then we have to be willing to put in that work, right? So as my father, Transmitter Lin, always loves to say, there's no free lunch, which means we can't gain or expect something in exchange for doing nothing. So we have to put in the effort. So now the Little Disciple is still kneeling in front of Holy Teacher crying. But now he's crying because he realizes how blind he was, right? How blind he's been. So he begs and pleads with Holy Teacher for another chance to reborn to earth and try again. But Holy Teacher tells Little Disciple how Holy Teacher worries that he will forget again and just make the same mistakes all over again. But the Little Disciple promises Holy Teacher that this time it's going to be different. He promises to make a big vow and fulfill it to surpass even the Buddhas. And he tells Holy Teacher how he wishes to return to permanent heaven and to never leave, and how he wishes to follow Holy Teacher's footsteps so that they can reunion forever together. And When I hear this story, basically I really enjoy this story because it's so relatable. Aren't we all little disciples of Holy Teacher? We are. And so what I learned from this story is that, it wasn't necessarily any really big mistakes that the little disciple made, but rather he made a lot of little mistakes. And that's one of the things I think about often is like, I have no idea how many little things I might have done poorly or done, something I did wrong each day. And it's really easy to keep making the same mistakes, just like the little disciple did, without even realizing that we're actually losing all of the really hard-earned merits we've already accumulated, right? So we don't want to gain merits and then just keep losing each of our merits by doing something silly. So it's really important that we become aware of what kind of mistakes the little disciple made so we don't do the same thing. And it's also really easy, to make excuses, and it's, let's say, pretty standard for humans to complain a lot. So I always feel really lucky that I have friends and family at Temple who can always keep me accountable. And I'm just so fortunate that we have these weekly classes to help remind me what's truly important, right? Because oftentimes we see people come to Temple for like specific reasons. Maybe they lost a loved one in their family, or they do it to help their kid, any number of reasons. But after they receive down, come to Temple, and their normal lives kind of settle down, maybe they moved on or their sick family members suddenly better, then sometimes they forget to be grateful or don't even realize that it's the Buddhas who helped reduce their karma. And they just go back to their everyday lives without thinking twice about it. So we always have to keep in mind heaven's grace and heaven's kindness, right? So all of these Buddhas are constantly doing things behind the scenes, turning our big karma into small karma, so we don't encounter as much hardship as we should have, right? So we have to just remember heaven's kindness and grace every day. And it's also really important to remember and remind ourselves that everything in this world, this physical world, is temporary. Earth is temporary. And therefore, we shouldn't get too attached to this world. It's important to note, though, that, some people hear this and think, oh, I shouldn't get attached to my family or my kids. But rather, it means we should really cherish the short, limited amount of time we have with them, and understand that one day we each have to leave this world by ourselves. That's just the law of nature. And just like that song that I had, said, Buddhas can hold our hands and guide us, but in the end, we must each walk this path by ourselves. And being wealthy in merits is much better than being wealthy in earth money, currency. Of course, it's important that we have to make money to live and to provide for our families, but we have to think about, what's the expense of that? We can't take our paychecks or our savings accounts or even our families with us when we leave this world, right? So we must not be short-sighted and just do our best to remember the bigger picture. We don't want to be like the little disciple demanding another chance from Holy Teacher one day because we threw away this perfect opportunity right now that we have in this lifetime, right? So, we should always trust heaven to plan our paths and to guide us, but we should also remember to seize any opportunities that Buddha send our way. Of course, we want to remain humble and pass opportunities along to others too. But if we get a chance to contribute some way or another, it's important that we don't waste it. If we're asked to share our experiences in class, or we get a chance to speak about how great the Tao is, we have to quickly embrace that opportunity and just do it, right? Honestly, I'm not a great talker or speaker, and I get really nervous talking in front of other people. But I just remind myself that I have a responsibility to spread the Tao and, try to do my best and do my part. And maybe even if one person, helps them just to hear some of the stories that I hear, then it's worthwhile, right? So we just do whatever we can, pitch in however we're able to. And, the funny thing is that my Chinese really is not very good. And this story of the little disciple is written in Chinese. So when I first heard the story, I think it might have been in like 2015 or so, my mom, lecturer Shi, wanted to explain the story to me line by line while I slowly translated it. And let me tell you how challenging and at times frustrating it was, and how many times I just wanted to give up back then. Because if you think about it, there were 2 language barriers, and I'm sure some of the story was lost in translation, which I do apologize for. But basically, long story short, that experience of hearing and translating the story back then, in retrospect, really showed me how impatient and difficult I could be at times, and how that was really something I needed to work on. And it also demonstrated to me, how patient my mother is, and how my parents are always willing to share good things with me and teach me. And anyway, despite all my stubbornness and impatience then, honestly finishing hearing the story and translating it was very rewarding, because I learned a lot from my parents and from the little disciple's story. And I'm just happy I got to share it now. So back to my conclusion. Lastly, we have to help others where we can, but also help ourselves. Especially in these difficult times during the pandemic, we should really spend more time cultivating ourselves, self-reflecting, and reading scriptures. We should do calligraphy like Confucius recommends, or just any sort of activity that helps better ourselves. And if we are able to, and help those in need and give, then heaven will see that and be moved by our kind hearts. And if we're not able to give money-wise, we can give compliments and we can give encouraging words to others, right? That doesn't cost us anything. And in these difficult times, our kind words can truly make a positive impact for someone who maybe really needs to hear it, right? So that's kind of everything I wanted to share for the little disciple, his story. And I do have one more short story that I can share with everyone, since we do have some time. Were there any questions about the little disciple story?
Christine, do you want to tell about your background first? You used to live in New Jersey, New York?
Oh, sure. My background is that I just turned 29 years old. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I am Taiwanese, and I went to college near Chicago in Illinois. And then when my parents decided they wanted to retire from New Jersey to somewhere else, and they decided Texas, I followed them. So I moved to Texas in 2017 with them, right around Thanksgiving. So it's been exactly 3 years since we moved to Texas and opened this temple. And I'm an accountant, and I work at a community college here in finance. So I'm just going to share one more story with everyone. So this story is a story I heard recently, and it happened recently. It's about a young lecturer in Thailand, and this lecturer is Sun Huilian, and she was born in 1992 and passed away last month in October. And so she was only 28 years old, about a year younger than me. And October 28th, 2020, which was only a month ago, she was riding a motorcycle and she crashed into a truck. She broke her right arm and her rib punctured her lung and her kidney, and she passed away. So 2 weeks after she passed, the morning of November 8th, a temple master who is also a lecturer was preparing for a class to begin soon. And she said she felt something pull her hand, and it was a spirit who was crying, saying, "I am Huilian," the lecturer, right? And the temple master was very startled, and she says that she felt her hair stick up on end, and she felt this very cold chill. So lecturer Sun, the young lecturer, told the temple master, "I don't want to be dead, and I miss my son and my parents, and I don't want to go back because I don't have any merits. And Holy Teacher was not able to help me, and I just wanted to come tell you that I'm so sorry." The lecturer says, I was always resenting you, and I always thought, why are you always nagging and telling us to build merits? So from the beginning, when that temple in Thailand was being built, the temple master was constantly trying to convince everyone and saying, so the lecturer Swin says, you would tell my mom to give contributions and fulfill vows, but our family was not rich and our expenses were a lot and we had a lot of debt. And then we had to give money to build this temple. So lecturer Swin said she was always resentful and always complaining, but her mother was never like that. Her mother loved to contribute any way she could. And her mom would say that since she's a lecturer, she needs to lead by example. So her mother actually accumulated a lot of merits while lecturer Swin had no merits at all. And she said that she had made many vows, but never fulfilled any of them. She said her karmic debts were not happy with her, and so because she had no merits, but she kept complaining, she said her bad karma was tired of waiting for her, so it was time to settle the account, so to speak. So a holy teacher told her that he couldn't help her because she didn't have any merits, so holy teacher could not negotiate her karmic debts for her. And holy teacher was not able to help lecturer Swin avoid the car accident. So it's like we were talking about in the other story, Buddhas are always helping us behind the scenes, but in order to help us and negotiate our karma down, they need our merits in order to negotiate it, right? So it's important that we accumulate as many as we can. So lecturer Swin said that if, lecturers give us an opportunity to earn merits, we should give. And if we're able to, then do it. And if we're not able to, do not complain. Because when we complain, any merits we may have earned will be gone. And when we complain and someone next to us hears it and decides they don't want to help either, then the sin or the negative karma is even greater. So the temple master asked lecturer Swin, so how are you doing now? And lecturer Swin said, holy teacher's so kind, and he was able to bring me today because of the class. And after the class, though, I'll have to return to Joyangguan, which is a place where cultivators are tested. And temple master asked, so there really is a testing and a jail in heaven. And then, they asked lecturer Swin, what did you do? Why do you have to go to jail in heaven? So lecturer Swin said, when I was on earth, I was too arrogant and always thought I was right. And I thought I had a lot of ability and deserved to be in front. And in this aspect, she says, I really did not cultivate well, so I have to cultivate this in the jail in heaven. The temple master asked her, what's heaven's jail like? And lecturer Swin said, it's ice cold, so cold that you can feel it in your bones. And that she must cultivate this perfectly before she can eventually graduate to another jail, right? So it's bad enough to be in one jail, but have to graduate and go to another jail. So lecturer Swin said that she often heard transmitters saying that helping to build a temple was a lot of merits. And lecturer Swin knew it was a big merit, but didn't know how big until she died. And it turns out, she says, the merits to build a temple were so big, it was like a big gold mountain of merits where each person who donates, their name is written on it. So helping to build a temple is like a bridge or a path guiding you to an entryway of permanent heaven, she says. Now, in Thai culture, when somebody passes, their spouse can go to an ordinary temple for a few days to transfer some merit for that person who passed. So lecturer Swin's husband went to an ordinary temple to do this. And on the first night that he was at the temple, the lady Guanyin Bodhisattva brought lecturer Swin into her husband's dream that night and told him, what are you doing here? And the husband said that he was trying to transfer merits to his wife. And then Guanyin Bodhisattva told him that the red era has already passed and now is the white era. He said, and so she told him, after these 3 days, you should quickly go back to the Tao temple and fulfill your vows. But the husband woke up and he didn't understand the meaning of this dream at all. So on the second night, the husband dreamt of his wife again, and this time with the temple master and holy teacher was next to them. And he said in the dream, holy teacher said, even though the person is gone, their vows are still there, still active. So now it depends on others to fulfill the vows for her in order for her to gain some merits. So the temple master asked lecturer Swin if she ever received any of the merits from her husband's 3-day journey to transfer merits to her. And lecturer Swin said yes, she actually did receive some merits, but very, very, very little, because it did not have heaven's mandate. So lecturer Swin said if the merits were earned in a white era temple, then the merits would be much more because of heaven's mandate. Right? So how lucky are we that we're all in a white era temple right now? Right? So the temple master went to speak and tell everything that happened to lecturer Swin's mother. And after she heard everything, the mom was crying, saying she didn't want to speak poorly about her daughter's actions, but she said that her daughter really did complain all the time. And lecturer Swin's husband confirmed that this was true. So lecturer Swin's husband said on October 28th, the day that she passed away, he did go to the accident site, and he said he saw Holy Teacher there and saw how Holy Teacher looked helpless because lecturer Swin really had no merits for him to use to negotiate for her. So the first point he said was lecturer Swin had no merits for Holy Teacher to negotiate her karmic debts for her. The second point was she was jailed in heaven because she was too arrogant and looked down on other people. And her husband said that one time there was a class at temple and lecturer Swin was the class director with this other lecturer. But she would talk down to this other lecturer saying, do you know what you're doing? Do you even understand? Do you know how to do this? And her husband told her, how could you use this tone to speak to another person? Right? So she really was, he's confirming that she really was kind of arrogant. And the third point her husband noted was that since the building of this temple, lecturer Swin non-stop complained about it. Like she would say in a month that she only made 20,000 Thai dollars and that her expenses were really high. And she would say, why does temple keep reminding us every single month to donate for this temple building? And every time her mother tried to donate, lecturer Swin would tell her not to donate so much and just put some of it back. Now, before the accident, some of the staff members would cook things and sell it at the marketplace for the temple. And within 10 days of doing this, they exceeded their goal of an additional 150,000 Thai dollars in order to start building this temple. So on October 26th, 2 days before lecturer Swin passed away, her mother told her to take the money they all raised and give it to the temple to start building. But lecturer Swin was really not happy about it, and she kept picking up the money, then putting it back away because she didn't want to. And she would keep saying, why do we have to give so much money? And her mom told her, this was my vow, and since I made the vow, I need to fulfill it. But lecturer Swin complained so much and was so unwilling to give the money. Her karmic debts decided they were tired of waiting for her, and now they wanted to settle her karmic bill. So 2 days later, on October 28th, she had her accident. And she asked the temple master to help tell her story and share it so that if anyone is able to listen to the story and heed her warning, and not do what she had done incorrectly, it can actually help her gain a little bit of merits. So lecturer Swin, she was very young, so she didn't really understand the weight of her actions and the things she said, right? Which I'm sure a lot of us, we say things that we don't necessarily mean, and who knows how many merits we've lost from the things we said, So there's a lot that we can learn from her story. First, we should not be arrogant. We don't want to end up in heaven's jail. And, just like we said earlier, all Buddha natures are equal. Buddhas don't look at us and say, these silly humans, they're below me. No, they're so kind and they're so compassionate. They just want us to be able to return back to permanent heaven with them. So we have to remember to always remain humble and respectful. So secondly, we need to accumulate merits to earn a place in heaven one day. So Senior Transmitter Jin's always telling us we don't want to return to our Heavenly Mother's home one day empty-handed. What he means is we want to bring our merits and virtues to show our effort to God. Now lastly, we don't want to wait until our karmic debts are tired of waiting for us and decide to settle our bills, right? We don't want to regret not doing more when we have the opportunity, just like, lecturer Swin and the little disciple threw theirs away. So we don't want to have to beg Holy Teacher for another chance to try again one day, because who knows if we will remember or if we will even have the same chance to cultivate that we have now. So my last thought that I wanted to share with everyone is, while this pandemic is very tragic that's going on right now, hopefully it's also a chance for all of us to self-reflect more. So since we shouldn't be going out so much right now, hopefully we can spend more time studying sutras or reading scriptures and just overall trying to cultivate better. And when everything is, back to normal and this is all over, let's always remember our priorities. We should do as much as we can to help the temple and the Tao, and just do our best to encourage as many people as we can each day. Every little bit we can do counts. It'll help them and it'll help us. And so I pray and wish you all and your families good health and happiness and happy holidays. And if I said anything incorrectly, I ask for heaven's forgiveness and for transmitters and lecturers to please correct me. Thank you.